All right, folks, we're almost done. Hang in there. What are we talking about? Seeds. We've already talked about a generic seed, and we said it has three parts: seed coat, embryo, and endosperm. How do those compare to real seeds? Well, here we have corn, the grains of corn. Technically speaking, they are fruit, but they're about 99+% seed, so we'll just call them seeds for tonight. Uh, what happens when you slice through a grain of corn? Where do you find these various things? Well, let's look. Wow, what in the world is that? Well, that's top center of a grain of corn. And let's go around kind of the left side. We're probably going to call this red stuff here. The what over here? The seed coat? Yeah, what's this bluish greenish? Well, it's either the endosperm or the embryo. Which do you suppose? Uh-huh. Coming down the left side. Ooh, now we're finally at something here. Whoa, that sure looks like a baby plant, doesn't it? It surely does. That must be the embryo. So this bluish greenish stuff is what? It's the endosperm. This reddish item here, this reddish entity, is the embryo. And so we look at a grain of corn. What do we have in there? Well, let's just kind of diagram it very quickly here. And so let's do this. This is a corn type grain, And how can we diagram it? Well, there's a seed coat around the outside for sure, a seed coat. And now, where are we going to put the embryo? Well, let's just kind of put it down here. This is the embryo. And what's all this stuff? Endosperm. It is endosperm. And so, and the question is, in a corn-type seed, where's the embryo? Well, a diagram like this would suffice. And what occupies most of the space inside a grain of corn or corn-type seed? Endosperm does, the embryo being a smaller part of the seed. And so, before we move on, let's look at a country cousin here. This is a grain of wheat. What's the red thing? Oh, that's the embryo, right? What's the bluish greenish stuff? That must be the what? The endosperm. And here's a little bit more of the embryo. And now you can go to the grocery store and buy a jar of wheat embryos. You know, this red thing here. But it wouldn't be labeled wheat embryos. It'd be labeled what? Wheat germ. Yeah, it's supposed to be very nutritious, wheat germ. And so, the embryo is the germ. And speaking of wheat, here's a little wheat flower. Now, wheat's in what plant family? Wheat and corn, they're in the grass family. And what are we looking at? We're looking at a little bitty flower. So little bitty, that round thing is what? Part of the flower. It is part of the flower ovary. The flower ovary. It is the flower ovary. And as we move up in the flower, we see what? We see some feathery type thing. What is that? That is the stigma. A feathery stigma. What did we say about the grass family? It is pollinated how? By wind. By wind. How would this feathery stigma help in the wind pollination? Well, you know, it just a pollen grain, a lot of places that get hit on that feather, and the job would be done because there is only one ovule down in the ovary. Only one pollen grain has to hit that feathery stigma. Speaking of which, what are these red things, big red structures with the little round things inside? Oh my goodness, they are anthers, huge anthers. The little round things inside are what? Pollen grains. Pollen grains. What does this remind us of? Wind pollination, wind pollinated flowers. How do they, how can you describe the quantity of pollen they make? They make a little bit or a whole bunch. Wind pollinated, wow, they make lots of pollen. These anthers, compared to the size of the flower, are huge. And so, grass family flowers send a tremendous amount of pollen downrange because they just need to get some of it to the right place. Huge anthers, lots of pollen floating off the breezes for a grass-type flower and a wind-pollinated flower. All right, now we're shifting gears to a bean type seed. Say bean, this doesn't look like a bean, it looks like a peanut. Same family, legume family, right? Legume. And so, I could have used the bean, but I kind of like this because it illustrates some things. Here's the peanut, the part we eat, right? And what is that part that we eat? What plant part is it? That is a seed. So if this is a seed, what's the outer shell? It is a fruit, for sure. It's a fruit. It developed from a flower what? A flower ovary. Now, we all know when you get the peanut, if it still has the little brown coat on it, you could get that brown coat off real easy. It just slips right off. And so what is that brown, that little thin, flimsy brown coat around the seed? Well, it must be the seed coat. Is that right? Yeah, the seed coat. And so here's some peanuts. They're out of the shell. They're out of the fruit, and they don't even have their seed coats anymore. What do we have left here? You say, well, it must be endosperm and embryo. No, no. Yeah, this is a little different situation. What you have and see here is 100% embryo. You say, what in the world happened to the what? The endosperm. Well, there used to be endosperm when the seed was starting to develop, but in this case, the embryo uses it all up. And so at maturity, a bean type seed, bean type seed is what? Well, it's got its little seed coat, For peanuts, that's that little brown covering. It's got the seed coat, but inside the seed coat at maturity, bean type seed is 100% embryo. 100% embryo. The embryo is everything. The embryo is everything inside the seed coat. Everything inside the seed coat. And so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the difference between a corn type seed and a bean type seed. And so the question in a bean type seed, where's the embryo? It's everything inside the what? The seed coat. Where's the endosperm? It's been used up in the development of the seed. There was endosperm at an earlier stage of development. It's all been used up by the developing embryo. And there, ladies and gentlemen, we have our discussion of two types of seeds, a corn type and a bean type seed, both variations of the generic theme. Okay, that's it.